The dark truth about your shadow self. There is a part of you that you do not know. Not because it is hidden from sight, but because you've been taught not to look. Carl Jung called it the shadow. And according to Jung, the shadow is not merely your dark side. It is the part of you that contains everything you rejected in order to be accepted. Every impulse you suppressed. Every trait you were shamed for. Every emotion you decided was too much. Every desire you buried so you could belong. The shadow forms quietly. As children, we quickly learn what earns approval. And what doesn't. Maybe you were told not to be angry. Not to be sensitive. Not to be loud. Not to be ambitious. Not to be selfish. So, you adapted. You built a version of yourself that fit the world around you. Jung called this mask the persona, the social identity we present to others. But here is the dark truth. Everything that doesn't fit inside the persona doesn't disappear. It goes somewhere. It goes into the shadow. And the shadow does not die. It waits. Jung believed that the most dangerous thing about the shadow is not that it exists, but that we refuse to acknowledge it. Because what we deny in ourselves does not remain passive. It expresses itself indirectly. Through projection. Through sudden anger. Through jealousy that feels irrational. Through intense reactions that surprise even us. Have you ever strongly disliked someone? And couldn't quite explain why? Jung would say, look closer. Often, what we cannot tolerate in others reflects something buried within ourselves. The arrogant person may trigger the confidence you were never allowed to express. The selfish person may reflect your own neglected needs. The manipulative person may mirror a side of you capable of strategy and power, but taught to suppress it. The shadow reveals itself most clearly in what we judge harshly. And this is where it becomes uncomfortable. Because the shadow does not only contain what is bad. It also contains what is powerful. Many people assume the shadow is made of cruelty, rage, greed, and shame. And yes, it can include those things. But it also contains creativity you never pursued. Confidence you were told was arrogance. Sexuality you were taught to repress. Ambition you minimized to seem humble. Strength you hid to avoid intimidating others. The shadow is not evil. It is unlived life. And the more you deny it, the darker it becomes. Jung warned that when individuals refuse to confront their shadow, it begins to control them unconsciously. Repressed anger becomes passive aggression. Repressed desire becomes obsession. Repressed insecurity becomes superiority. When we do not own our darkness, it owns us. This is why Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In other words, the parts of you that you refuse to see will shape your decisions from behind the curtain. You will sabotage relationships without knowing why. You will repeat patterns without understanding the root. You will feel drawn to chaos and call it coincidence. But it is not coincidence. It is the shadow seeking recognition. Here is the paradox Jung understood deeply: the shadow becomes dangerous only when ignored. When acknowledged, it becomes a source of strength. To integrate the shadow does not mean acting out every impulse. It means recognizing it. Saying, yes, this exists in me. You are capable of anger. You are capable of selfishness. You are capable of envy. You are capable of dominance. But you are also capable of immense power, creativity, and depth. When you integrate your shadow, you stop pretending to be purely good. And that makes you more whole. Because wholeness is not perfection. It is completeness. Modern culture encourages performance. Be positive. Be kind. Be productive. Be likable. But Jung believed that forced goodness creates inner division. The more you cling to the identity of the good person, the more violently your shadow may rebel. History shows us this truth collectively. Jung observed that societies, like individuals, project their shadows onto enemies. The evil is always out there. The danger is always them. But the refusal to examine collective darkness leads to catastrophe. And the same applies internally. When you say, "I could never do something terrible," you create the conditions under which you might. Because you no longer believe yourself capable. Shadow work begins with humility. The recognition that you are not only light. You are dual. And maturity comes from holding both. So how do you meet your shadow? Not through self-hatred. Not through guilt. But through honest observation. Notice what triggers you. Notice who you envy. Notice what qualities you secretly admire but publicly criticize. Your strongest emotional reactions are clues. Jung often encouraged engaging with dreams, because the shadow appears symbolically there, as a threatening figure, an intruder, an animal, or a stranger. These figures are not enemies. They are fragments of you. And the goal is not to eliminate them, but to understand them. When you face your shadow, something surprising happens. Your compassion deepens. Because once you recognize your own darkness, you stop needing to pretend you are superior. You become less reactive. Less judgmental. More grounded. You no longer fear your own depth. And that makes you far less controllable. Because a person who has faced their shadow cannot be manipulated by it. They are no longer desperate to appear perfect. They are real. The dark truth about your shadow self is this: it is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to complete you. The parts of yourself you fear may contain the energy you need to evolve. But integration requires courage. It requires stepping beyond the comfort of your persona. It requires admitting that you are capable of more, both good and bad, than you like to believe. And that realization is unsettling. But it is also liberating. Because when you accept your full nature, you reclaim your power. You stop running from yourself. And meaning begins where self-deception ends. Jung did not believe in becoming perfect. He believed in becoming whole. And wholeness is impossible without the shadow. So the question is not whether you have a shadow. You do. The question is, will you let it control you from the dark? Or will you bring it into the light? If this resonated with you, you're already beginning the work. Subscribe to Oblivion's Riddle for more deep explorations into psychology, philosophy, and the hidden forces shaping your inner world. And in the comments, reflect honestly, what trait in others triggers you the most? That may be where your shadow is waiting.